Is the Premier League already over if Isak signs for Liverpool? Maybe, maybe not. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sink, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. But today I'm going to try something a little bit different, because although first and foremost I am a Chelsea fan, and this channel will always be primarily directed towards Chelsea content, at large I'm a football fan, right? And I've been looking at this for the last few days being like, oh man, I'd love to talk about this a little bit, but it's not really my channel's niche. So what I would love to know is if you guys generally enjoy my content and are subscribed and watchers. Thanks, by the way. Are you at all interested in my ramblings and inner musings and opinions on some other things about football in general? If yes, let me know in the comments. If no, and you prefer I just keep things Chelsea, then that's absolutely fine. Just let me know in the comments too. So I'm going to take this experimental moment to talk about what's going on with Alexander Isak, how maybe agitating for a move away from Newcastle, and how it just seems to be written in the stars that Liverpool is where he's going to end up. And if that automatically means, regardless of all of the other amazing signings that Liverpool have made this season, is that kaput finito for anyone else to have a shot at the Premier League next season. So before we get into the Liverpool stuff, I'm just going to talk about the proposed idea that Isak is agitating for a move away from Newcastle and whether I think that is fair or not. So despite diving heavily into content creation, I am still an avid YouTube watcher myself, and I watched an interesting video the other day about True Geordie and his kind of reaction to the Isak news, right? So I found it interesting that the main thing that he goes in on is loyalty, and I do understand that as a concept. Newcastle took a chance on Isak, they paid a reasonable amount of money for him, and they've given him the platform to develop into the player that he is. And obviously you're going to be a lot more hurt by this as a Newcastle fan, right? Because if he's just helped you win your first ever trophy in 70 years, and there's going to be a real connection there. Do you know what I mean? He's going to go down in the history of the club whether he leaves now or not. But my thing with this in general is a little bit similar to how I felt about the Trent Alexander-Arnold to Real Madrid fiasco that's kind of obviously been and gone now. Maybe it's a slightly cold and cynical view, but if I'm completely honest, I just don't generally believe that loyalty exists in modern football anymore. I think long gone are the days where being a club guy, it means a lot to the fans. Absolutely, don't get me wrong, like I love seeing Reece James in our team, do you know what I mean? And not just because he's an amazing player, but because he's one of us. He's a Chelsea fan, he's been at the club since he was a little tiddler, and watching him grow into a man and get on the pitch and be one of the world's best has been obviously like a dream come true, do you know what I mean? We all obviously want to see this. As far as actual loyalty goes, I do honestly feel like if someone would have come in with an 80 to 100 mil plus bid for Reece James over the last few years and offered him 300k a week, like the likes of Real Madrid or PSG, or I don't even know, but Real Madrid more probably, and he'd have chose to have left, I wouldn't have been super hurt by that, do you know what I mean? I'd have been really disappointed, don't get me wrong, but like I say, I think I'm quite cold and cynical about it, where I just think, okay, so he wants to make the next step, his perceived next step in his career. So, to go back to the example of Trent, yes, was a Liverpool boy, absolutely, and he said a lot of things when he was younger. He's like, oh, I want to be the captain and this, that and the other, but, as time goes on and, he's won the Premier League and he's won the Champions League and he's kind of done it in the UK, he's looking further afield and being like, oh, okay, so, that was probably his dream for a long time, and he's reached his dream at a relatively young age, and he's thought, oh, okay, maybe I've hit that plateau already. Do I want to just stay here now, or do I see myself wanting to do something different? I can't blame anyone for that, man. Do you know what I mean? I feel a little bit the same way about Isak. I'll caveat that with what I think to understand to be the largest source of disappointment from Liverpool fans seems to be that he was not only agitating for the move as it happened, he seemed to be preparing for it for a long time. Obviously, he went on a free, so the club didn't get a transfer feedback for him. And the fact that he arrived straight away in Real Madrid speaking Spanish was probably a little bit of a dagger in the back, because that only optically, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but optically, it makes it look like he's actually been preparing for this move for some time. But it's difficult, isn't it? Because the thing is, if that Real Madrid was the goal, or albeit not for his entire life, but if that became the goal a few years ago, and it was intimated to him one way or the other that the only way we're taking you is if you're on a free. If you're not on a free, we're not going to buy you because we can't pay you the wage you want. Then okay, he did what he needed to do for him. And in terms of the loyalty side of it, right, he performed his duty admirably. Do you know what I mean? He fulfilled his entire contract, and he won everything. Do you know what I mean? He won absolutely everything. He was a dutiful professional, and he was a cornerstone of one of Liverpool's best teams and most successful periods in the entire Premier League era. So, I don't know, like I say, it's cold, it's cynical, this is just kind of how I feel about it. Maybe being a Chelsea fan has got something to do with that, because I'm so used to mercenaries coming in and out of the club, and, the hiring and firing of managers, and very rotational policies when it comes to staff in general. Maybe I've just been conditioned to think this way. I see it as like a two-way thing, do you know what I mean? Is he agreed a contract to be paid a certain amount of money money to do a certain job, and not only did he do that certain job, he did it extremely well and essentially surpassed expectations, right? So that is a bit of a side quest I've just gone on, obviously, about Trent, but I will bring that back to Isak now. So Isak doesn't even have the same connection to Newcastle that Trent did to Liverpool, right? With the Trent thing, the two things that are really obvious is he was a Liverpool boy, a Liverpool fan, and he obviously left on a free. I mean, I think there was some court of arbitration of sport thing where they ended up getting 10 mil for him because they wanted to buy him for the Club World Cup. So they didn't get nothing, but 10 mil for a player of Trent's quality when that should have been 70, 80 mil, something like that. There's obviously like a giant gap there. If he leaves, he's not going to leave for nothing. Do you know what I mean? You're going to get a serious chunk of change. And one of the things that has obviously been really disappointing for Newcastle fans is since the Saudi owners came in, it's going to be very, okay, we're going to start buying people. But then obviously PSR really became a bit of a boogeyman just then, and that hasn't been able to happen. But if you sell someone like Alexander Isak, minus what you paid for him versus amortization versus his wage, whatever, you're still going to end up with a massive chunk of change on the books, and that is going to be able to be reinvested in the squad. And the same as Trent, like, he came in and was a big part of you winning your first trophy in 70 years. Do you know what I mean? He's been a part of getting your team back into the Champions League through the long stretch from relegation to now. Alexander Isak's been a really important part of getting Newcastle to the point where they can start considering themselves one of the top teams in the country. They've always been an enormous club, don't get me wrong. It's nothing about that at all. I'm purely talking about a statistical standpoint from the points Newcastle have accrued and the honours that they've won over the last few decades. So yeah, that's just my personal opinion, by the way. And if you disagree with me, let's have a chat about it in the comments, man. Right now, as a neutral looking from the outside, and that's 100% what this is. I'm not here to tell anyone how to feel about their team. If you're a Newcastle fan or a devout follower of Alexander Isak and you disagree with me, like, I'm absolutely not here to tell you what to think or how to feel. I'm only voicing my opinion and trying to incite some debate, right? Like I say, if you disagree with me, like, let's talk about it in the comments, man. I'd love to know what you think. So that's kind of how I feel about the Isak thing in terms of the Newcastle move, and it's a bit weird, isn't it? Like, he's injured or whatever. Is it one of those things where he's just turned around now and kind of dropped the bomb at this point in the window and it's a bit of a shock? Like, that's not ideal. I completely understand, Newcastle fans especially thinking that this is maybe not an amazing thing for Isak to be doing, but from a reasonably young lad trying to progress in his career and seeing an opportunity to maybe go on to do something that he perceives to be bigger, then, people are just going to do that in their lives, man. That's just the world we live in, isn't it? So let's move on to the Liverpool stuff, right? So I've had a little look to see what other clubs have been linked with Isak, and the truth is, like, everyone's interested. Do you know what I mean? Chelsea are interested, but it's absolutely not going to happen because it's just too much money. Real Madrid, Barcelona would both love to have a player like Isak on their books, but again, Real Madrid have got their own problems at the moment with trying to fit all of their superstars in. Barcelona are financially wrecked at the moment, and even PSG, right? PSG seems to me the only other logical place for Isak to go. He's a very mobile forward and versatile, and he can, sort of connect play, and he's not just your standard target man. Like, he does offer a lot more, and I think that would probably fit really well in Luis Enrique's team. But they've got a harmony and a balance at the moment, right? And they're playing really well without a proper number 9, if you will. But yeah, like I say, other than Liverpool, PSG is the only team I can see going in for him. So it's this kind of weird situation where a striker like Isak becomes available, but because of how much he's worth, because of the inflation of football, you're looking at 300 grand a week, 150 million pounds probably, by the way, as a transfer fee, which is mental. And here are Liverpool, recent Premier League winners, and they're really going for it in the transfer window this season, aren't they? Absolutely. And it does seem to make sense as well. It's a really strange, nuanced conversation that I've been looking into a little bit. And again, this is from a neutral perspective. So if you disagree with anything I've got to say, or you think there's more to the Isak to Liverpool stuff, then I'm kind of meeting here, then please, let's have a chat about it in the comments. I would love to learn as much as possible. But the way I look at it is quite interesting. So it does make sense, sort of tactically, and sort of it doesn't. So I'll kind of go through those two things. The reason it sort of makes sense is because Arne Slot, right? And not looking at Arne Slot's Liverpool from last season, because he essentially came in, picked up Klopp's team, changed very little, and just kind of went with what he had. But going back to Arne Slot's time at Feyenoord, he actually really likes this kind of striker. His last striker that scored like 20 plus goals 2 seasons running, one when they won the Eredivisie and one where they won the Dutch Cup, was also a very mobile, versatile kind of striker. So stylistically, just from that, it makes sense that Arne Slot would favour a striker like that. It's a very modern striker as well. Arne Slot plays a, quite modern style of football. So yeah, just without even thinking about any of the other players that Liverpool have got right now, and man, have they got some players. Arne Slot's preferred, and we say preferred tactics, right? I assume at least, that eventually when he starts bringing in the players that he wants, and he seems to be doing that a lot at the moment, he's probably going to try and change Liverpool's style a little bit to match more of the kind of thing that he was doing with Feyenoord and his inherent tactical kind of philosophy. But there are reasons that I think this will work long term, one way or the other. If Liverpool get Isak, it is going to work. But the question for me is just, does it work straight away this season? And there's a couple of reasons that I'm not sure. So the main one, and this is a debate I've had with two YouTubers recently. I had a chat with Kai from Behind the Dugouts about it and Jan from Football Therapy, and they both had quite different views, which is interesting because obviously they're both Chelsea fans. So essentially, I put forward my kind of thesis, right? And my thesis was, as far as Liverpool go, when they picked up their first three signings in Kirkes, Frimpong and Wirtz, I was like, mate, they're just going to come and dominate the league again. You could see that there's going to have to be some tactical shift going on because Wirtz is a number 10-ish kind of guy, and Szoboszlai, it seems like that's the player that's maybe going to suffer a little bit for Wirtz coming in. But if they were keeping most of what they had, notwithstanding, of course, the tragic loss of Diogo Jota, outside of that, if they kept most of their team together and just changed these few little things, then it's not so much of a great reset. You could probably see them playing similar football to what they have. And what Liverpool haven't had lots of over the last few years, even in their pomp when they were dominating and winning stuff with Jurgen Klopp, was a number 9, right? The most prolific person to fill that spot in the last, 8 years or whatever it is now, 8 or 9 years it's been, is Roberto Firmino. And he was a false 9, do you know what I mean? It's like he wasn't a striker. He was from Hoffenheim, I think it was, where he played kind of a number 10 and up front sometimes. But in Jurgen Klopp's system, it was all built around Firmino dropping deep and essentially having Sadio Mane and Mo Salah coming out from wide inside to score all of the goals, essentially. Firmino scored some goals, don't get me wrong, but he absolutely wasn't like the focal point as far as their goal scoring was. That was Mo Salah and Sadio Mane. So they got very, very, very used to not having a striker. And it makes a little bit of sense when you think about it like that, why people like Darwin Núñez have come in and struggled a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I think Alexander Isak is clearly much better than Darwin Núñez. But at the same time, I think Darwin Núñez maybe might have done much better if he'd have gone into a team that was ready for a striker to come into it. Do you know what I mean? The DNA of Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool still exists quite strongly in that Liverpool team, even though a lot of those players have moved on and, new people have come in. Ultimately, it's Alisson in goal, it's Van Dijk in defence, and midfield is shuffled around quite a lot, but has never really been the main focus of that team. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like the creativity and where things are coming from, it's been fullbacks and wingers that have been creating and scoring the majority of the goals. And tactically, that's where I think it might be a bit unusual, right? Because Mo Salah is used to having free reign. Do you know what I mean? It's like he is that guy. He is just the guy. He normally starts on the right, obviously spent a bit of time in the middle. Even after Sadio Mane with the likes of Jota and Diaz, do you know what I mean? The majority of their attacking play, you've got Cody Gakpo now, plays a lot on the left, and that's generally where their goals seem to come from. And self-admittedly, Arne Slot has come in and said, I haven't changed that much this season. So what we're looking at now is, if it was just the team that you were looking at now, there's already going to be potentially some sort of transitional process where the team gets used to playing with a striker that wants to be the focal point, that wants to be scoring goals, and isn't just always going to drop deep and take the back seat to Mo Salah, for instance. Alexander Isak is going to back himself to challenge Erling Haaland for the Golden Boot. Do you know what I mean? It's just absolutely going to happen. So that's the first thing about tactically coming into the Liverpool team. The other thing is just the sheer amount of players that they've bought. This is something I talked about with Jan on Football Therapy. I'd kind of said, look, as a Chelsea fan, right, I know how difficult it is for a good manager to incorporate a lot of new players into a team at the same time. It's always a bit of a struggle, and we've done it so much recently. And Jan's response to that was, and I do agree with him, do you know what I mean? Is like, Liverpool aren't talking about buying South American children like what we've largely been doing. They're buying in experienced professionals who are at the top level of their game and are going to be looking to just come in and dominate. But for me, from the Chelsea angle, there's actually a little bit more than just even the recent thing with Blueco, like coming in and changing all of our team. Like, we've done this a few times. In recent memory, we bought like Kai Havertz and Hakim Ziyech and Timo Werner, like all in and around the same time, and tried to just completely revitalise our attack after it being revitalised again before that from Frank Lampard coming in and filling filling our team full of academy players, supplemented by the likes of Christian Pulisic. So literally, I can think of 3 times in the last like 6 years or whatever that we've brought in a lot of players to try and change our style at the same time. And yes, arguably, we haven't always had the best managers to do that, and Arne Slot had just won a Premier League. I'm not taking anything away from Arne Slot as a tactician. I think he did a marvellous job last season with 0 signings and a team that was looking a bit leggy under Jurgen Klopp just when he left, you know what I mean? And obviously that's one of the reasons that Jurgen Klopp left, because he just said he was so mentally tired, and you would have to imagine that would extend to the team as well. So Arne Slot coming in, it was not only an excellent masterstroke as a tactician, but it offered a breath of fresh air to those players and got them to start playing, you know, better football again, because the ideas were new and fresh and they were excited to try something different. But yeah, man, like I say, I've seen it, you know, 3 times where we've literally revamped our entire team, and it's so difficult to fit everyone in. And that's only been worse since Blueco have taken over, because they're doing it like completely en masse. Like window after window after window, we are buying 6 to 8 players and we are selling 6 to 8 players, and the squad just keeps changing and changing and changing. And obviously there was that crazy time where we had like 40 players and everyone was changing it to change it. Oh, it was a mess. Do you remember? But yeah, it was mental. And like I say, you know, to go back to my original part of this argument, if Liverpool had just brought in those 3 players and looked on kind of pushing on from there and tactically looking to only really change how they play their system to incorporate Viets, I'd have been like, yeah, okay, I get it. And I think they'll probably go and walk, well, not necessarily walk the league. I think City are a bit of a sleeping giant. I'll talk about that in another video if you enjoy my general football ramblings. But yeah, 3 players in, you know, it didn't seem like a crazy thing, but then all of a sudden Ekitike gets bought, and it's like, oh, okay, that's another kind of big name to buy in. And then after that, there was some news about being linked with Rodrigo, and I was like, oh, mate, okay, that's another one. And now we're talking about Alexander Isak as well, and that's like, wow, okay. Now the Rodrigo stuff, maybe that one doesn't happen. If they buy Isak, you know, that they're probably spent by that point, aren't they? Spending nearly $500 million in a window, but bringing in 5 new players who are all going to want to play first team football, and this was another thing that Jan said, like Jan is like not convinced that they're all just going to come in and start straight away. That seems like the logically smart thing to do, but from like just think of a footballer's ego, and I don't mean that in a bad way. You have to have an ego to be good at anything. Do you know what I mean? You need to believe in yourself. The likes of Kirkes and Frimpong and Viers and Ekitike have all just come off of amazing seasons. Alexander Isak is just about to, if he goes to Liverpool, come in off an amazing season. At no point is Frimpong going to be on the bench watching Connor Bradley, is it, who plays at right back? And Isak's not going to be sat there watching Darwin Núñez up front and being like, yeah, okay, wicked. Do you know what I mean? These guys are going to come in and, do you know what I mean? They're going to want to play, especially for the kind of money that they're going to be on. So kind of what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way is when you stack your team with brand new stars, it's not just as simple as plug and play. Now, I could be 100% wrong here, and if I am, I will eat my words, absolutely. Do you know what I mean? If Liverpool just come and walk the league again and Arne Slot turns out to be a mastermind genius who just knows how to put all of this stuff together, then yeah, absolutely. Do you know what I mean? It's not 100% thing. It's just kind of where I'm leaning towards. I don't necessarily think Alexander Isak joining Liverpool now means that they're dead on for the Premier League next season. I think if anything, no one expected them to do it this season. So they've got money in the bank, right? Like literally and figuratively, they've got money in the bank. They've got a lot of love from the Liverpool support, and the hierarchy obviously think, right, Slot's the right man. So they can spend all of this money and they can afford to take a season and maybe focus on the Champions League and those knockout games. And, you know, I mean, give him time to like build the team, and maybe as long, you know, top 4 might be the ultimate kind of thing. They're never going to say that out loud. They're going to obviously scream it from the rooftops that they're going to go for the Premier League. But logically to me, it makes sense that if Liverpool don't win the Premier League next season and use it as a rebuild season to kind of factor all of their very averagely young players and stuff in, that might be genius. Because yes, they might miss out on it next year because of that, but they might set themselves up for some Man City style 4 in 5 over the next 5 years. Do you know what I mean? The next half decade could be completely red everywhere if they play this right. So again, like maybe I'm going a really long way around it and I'm rambling a little bit, and I hope you guys are enjoying this. And if you're not, just tell me in the comments and I promise I'll never do it again. But basically, I don't necessarily think Isak, alongside all of these other players going to Liverpool right now, signals that they're going to win the Premier League next year. I won't go into it into too much detail, but I think the likes of City have been using the fact that they finished third to kind of do their rebuild pretty quietly. Do you know what I mean? No one's really talking about City at the moment, but they've still got Pep Guardiola, and how many times have Man City had 2 bad seasons in a row since he's been in charge? And as much as I hate to say it, you can't write Arsenal off either, especially when they've just brought in Victor Gyökeres. If Victor Gyökeres comes in and is just the final piece of that puzzle. Do you know what I mean? Where they're not really looking at changing the way they play so much. The philosophy's there. The majority of the playing staff is there. I know Arsenal have bought a few players as well, but it doesn't seem they haven't bought as many brand new going straight into the team. Do you know what I mean? Norgard feels like he's kind of interchangeable. Madueke feels like he's kind of interchangeable. So it really feels like from an Arsenal perspective that Gyökeres is the guy that's really coming in to be the final piece of the puzzle. And I don't enjoy saying that because I desperately just want to finish above Arsenal next season. Ultimately, as a Chelsea fan, that's my main goal. And what I'm not doing, to paraphrase Jan, is denigrating Liverpool's amazing work at all. I actually think that this could be a really smart thing for Liverpool to do, is to buy all of these players now and spend the next season kind of getting everyone all involved and, you know, creating the new system and the new style and trying to set up a domination legacy over the next half decade after that. I've got a feeling that the Premier League is going to be really interesting next season. And it was interesting this season, but Liverpool obviously walked it, do you know what I mean? And there wasn't much jeopardy at the top of the table. But I have a sneaking suspicion that next season might be quite different to that. And again, tell me in the comments what you think. I would love to know your opinions on the Isak situation. Do you think Liverpool are just going to walk it? Do you agree with me that City might be sleeping giants? Do you think this is Arsenal's year and they've been slowly building towards it? Or do you think that kind of out of nowhere, Chelsea might come in and actually have a title challenge? So yeah, that's my 2 cents on the Isak situation. Again, would love to know what you think. Thanks for sticking around until the end of the video if you did. I'll be keeping my ear to the ground for Chelsea news, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have some stuff to talk about really, really soon. Nice one, guys. I hope you're having a wicked day, and I'll catch up with you very soon. Peace.